So here we are, Post and Mary. A production that has certainly changed my life and my outlook on things in theater. I certainly didn't imagine it would end this way. I hardly knew how it would begin with the whole device process and everything, but it was a good journey. It was very interesting to be there from the beginning and kind of watch the whole piece come into shape over time, as well as throwing in the elements of the site-specific theater challenge, which I guess I'll go into later, but it was one of my favorite parts about this was the amount of historical context and different sources we went through and looked at, and the devising class brought in that really pulled in a variety of different context and views of the time period, as well as looking at the colonial echo and going like, oh, here's some things that actually happened. Here's some people that weren't mentioned, like Maria. That was another cool thing. It was like seeing characters that didn't really play a prominent part in the history, looking deeply into any context we could find of them, and then developing their characters from there. Which was a fun thing about working with the character Jimmy, was that I did get a nice blurb of text in the yearbook about like what he did at the college and who he was, and just which gave me a good starting point about how to develop his character from there, like the president of the YMCA and the Philomanthean Literary Society, and just kind of develop him as this from this person who existed on a piece of paper on a page, which I guess you do in normal theater anyway, but as a literal person that actually existed in a historical context for this devised piece, and then taking those context clues and then developing him into a character befitting of what we went through in the text and what we developed as a showpiece, and kind of taking out those pieces of character, like his formalities, his leadership positions, his need to be in charge, and like this need for control, and this like kind of two-faced political side to him almost, where it's like I will show you one side or I'll show you the other side depending on like how the situation or who you are is, and taking that and running with that in the grammar room and in all these other places and the minor interactions we had with our characters throughout the piece. And so kind of watching and developing that in context with the rest of our actors and the rest of the cast was a really cool part of this process. And also just the being able to perform in the Wren building was another amazing aspect of the show to me, because there's a lot of challenges in site-specific theater where it's the spaces aren't normally formatted for theater performances, as in the technical sides of Anne Mary with our flipping breakers on the boxes and everything. But alas, that happens when you go to a historic building like the Red. But being able to develop and flesh out a piece that possibly will definitely occur in the same, like taking the historical context and looking at the pieces that we pulled out, all these events happened within that same building and were developed over time within that building and are buried in its history, and kind of just unearthing those, reformatting them and adding context to them for our modern audience and throwing it out there in the same space was amazing. As well as we actually, the Wren building wasn't built for a presentation format and theatrical standpoint, but a majority of the rooms, like the grammar room and the chapel, they're built for this presentation format, and to have a person stand up and lecture to you or talk to you or preach to you in the space. But what we did, which I found was amazing, was we found ways to kind of somewhat keep that fourth wall established, like in the chapel and the Great Hall, but kind of bend that wall a bit to get the audience in there and to interact with them and to touch base with them. Which in the grammar room, we just completely tossed the fourth wall out. A room that naturally had this fourth wall existence with a podium on one side, and it's designed to be lectures and educational classes, but instead we bury our two beginning people in the back corners, forcing the audience to like have this interaction with them and be tangible with them, and going out there and going into the space and touching bases with the audience and physically touching the audience and plugging them in to interact with them, as well as like the portico, not naturally a presentational space, but the arches itself just favor like these windows, this beautiful view of anything that takes place in it, and being able to take advantage of it, then that natural structure, all this, the heart and soul of the Wren building itself, and being able to pull that out and put it into the piece is like just the Wren bell, the voice of the Wren building, and being able to use that in the show is just amazing, and an amazing part of the site-specific process that we couldn't have done anywhere else. And taking advantage of those things really made this as a site-specific piece and device piece just kind of pulled this together into this beautiful final piece that we came up with, and which was amazing. And after the rehearsal process and after going through it, like being in the space, you didn't get that final feel of what it was going to be like until you walked in and there was the 40 people audience being took around for the tour guides, which was another cool part of the process, is the tour guides and what they did. But I can't really attest much to that. But watching the 40 people in the audience come in, and all of a sudden your room goes from empty, and all of a sudden it is just full of these people and this life, and you're taking them from a context from which they have no idea what's going on. They don't know what's going to happen, and you manage to pull them in and rein them into the show and see how they're going to react to each piece. Like in the grammar room, I know me, Sam, and Dom spent a lot of time. Like we as we worked the floor, we would analyze how the audience would feel about each piece, and kind of just take it from there. And like, okay, they laughed at these jokes. That means they're laughing. They're uncomfortable, but they're laughing at their uncomfortable. They're laughing at the awkwardness and trying to laugh away at the fact that they're uncomfortable, which is what happened a lot with the Tradition tour first, because they were the first ones into the room, and they hadn't really experienced any other parts of the show yet. So we'd walk in and we'd kind of take advantage of that and like kind of ooze that uncomfortableness to them, and just kind of pull it out of them and pull those awkward laughs and just kind of pull that energy and keep yanking on it until we kind of pulled everything we had out of them. And then for the second and third tour groups with Legacy and Justice, they had very different attitudes. It was kind of this ascending order of like uncomfortable, but I'm going to laugh at it because it's funny uncomfortable because I haven't experienced anything else in the show yet. And then once you get Legacy in there, it's more I'm shifting in my seat uncomfortableness. Like this is bad, because by that point they'd seen the Great Hall scene and they've adjusted to, oh, this is not good things happening right now. This is not a good place. And then when Justice comes in, they'd seen the chapel in the Great Hall, and they come in and sit down, and they're at peak uncomfortableness. They're oozing with like this inner turmoil at every word we say, like debating whether to just stand up and leave the room. Like we had one night where one girl's mouth was just ajar the entire time. She was like, "Are they really saying this?" But then being able to analyze that and just go hard on it and just pull that from the audience, just make it more tangible to them and make them realize that these are things that actual people said, and like pulling on those strings and just pulling them into the piece was a great part of the process, and we had a lot of fun with it. And especially one of my favorite parts was the ending of the show, though. The way we took everyone from the past and now back of the Wren building, where they were surrounded by these four walls, like the old walls of the Wren building and the fence on the outside. They were contained within the space, contained in this world with Anne Mary, and then pulling them through the Wren building, through the doors, and taking them out the front side into the open field, the front courtyard, and just telling them, bringing them in and telling them who we want to remember, and going through our own memories with them and our journeys and what was personal with us, and like the Tradition tour, honoring those who came before us. And then we transfer to the Legacy tour. I mean, not the Legacy, the Justice tour, and demand things from our college and demand this change and ask for things within a common voice and ask to deal with the issues that we presented at the show that we're still dealing with today. And then we end with the Justice, and we end with Legacy, with the alma mater, with our changed version of the alma mater, pulling it all together, pulling it into this unification, which pulling into the unification of the overall pieces, a student body saying, yes, we know the college is not the best, has not always been the best place, nor is the best place currently, but we can still change it, and we can still motivate it towards that change. And there was just something beautiful about being able to do that in that piece of art in that format, and for us to create that and to bring that to life ourselves was just simply amazing. I will say, by far, Anne Mary is probably one of the best theater experiences I've ever had, and I've loved every minute of it. And I will truly miss the cast and all the excellent work we did. And of course, I wish we could have keep working at it and keep going further and further into it, developing it, shining it, refining it. But every piece of art needs to be done at some point. So I think we had by far one of the most amazing pieces of art to present to the college. I think it went amazingly, and I loved every minute of it. So thanks for everyone, me and Mary.